What's going on, yo? Welcome back to basketball, and more importantly, welcome back to our season preview series. This is a series where I'm breaking down all 30 NBA teams before the start of the regular season. It's kind of the dead point in the basketball calendar, but we know the season's not that far away, so I want to go in depth and get you guys ready for this season. And in this video, we're tackling the Brooklyn Nets, a team that is in a interesting position. They had a fun offseason, didn't they? I'm really excited to talk about it. But in this video, we're going to talk about how things went last season, goals that we have, what that offseason looked like. We'll do a complete roster breakdown talking about their salary cap situation, their draft picks, the current roster, rotation, lineup ideas. We'll do some mock trades, and then finish off with a standings prediction at the very end. But before we go and do that, make sure that you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment to my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. This is video number 9, it looks like, actually, in this series, so there's probably going to be a couple other videos out on the channel that you don't even see on here for you to watch, so please go watch them. I know this series hasn't been doing, like, stellar at this point. This is really for the basketball sweats that actually care about basketball, like, all year round. I know this is the kind of content that I would want to see at this time of the year, so I want to be the one doing it. So we're gonna get basketball on YouTube, and it's not gonna be 2K related, because that's the only thing I really see 2K creators doing, or not 2K creators, but basketball creators doing right now is playing 2K, and I'm not gonna do that. So with all that being said, let's jump into the video. And that brings us back to our season preview spreadsheet. For those of you new to the channel, I like to make these spreadsheets because it kind of helps me articulate and visualize the stories that I'm telling on my channel. And you can actually get access to the spreadsheet if you want. It's really, really simple. All you have to do is go down into the link in the description, and you'll see a link to join my Discord. It's completely free. Jump on there, go over to the announcements channel, and you'll see a link to download this sheet. It should be fun. Do whatever you want with it. I'm going to be updating it all the time because it constantly needs to be tweaked and add more data to the background of it. So just know I'll be doing that at all times, but hopefully this kind of is a fun thing for you to help you get through your day or whatever. But anyway, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. We always start off on the intro tab here, where we kind of talk about what did the season look like last year and where are we going this year. The Brooklyn Nets started out the season maybe not as bad as you would think. When we did our season preview series last year on the channel, we talked about how, just looking at this Nets team, that they were kind of in a different phase. They weren't quite in the rebuilding phase yet. They were in kind of a more selling phase, trying to blow the team up a little bit, still selling off some assets. We looked at their team and we were like, I think this team's actually going to be pretty okay on a night-to-night basis. They're not going to bottom out as much as we think that they are. You combine that with the fact that Coach Jordy was pretty damn good last season, and the Nets were a pretty respectable team for like the first quarter of the way through the season. And then the Nets were like, okay, we are obviously not losing enough games. We really need to start blowing things up. And then that's when they really started to put their foot on the gas and started to blow the team up a little bit more. You started to see this team lose a lot more. And they finished the season 26-56. Not enough to get you a top draft pick, and it just probably wasn't the most productive year, but it's a selling year. Those kind of are the harder years. You now find this team in a rebuilding status. If you're new to these videos, there's a couple different statuses that I put a franchise in. You've got selling, which, like I said, that's kind of blowing up and getting rid of all your old stuff. So we're talking about the Dorian Finney-Smiths they had to get rid of, right? They got rid of Mikal Bridges going into the season. Cameron Johnson was obviously traded during this offseason. So just getting rid of like the last remaining, Dennis Schroeder, another one, just like good basketball players that just aren't going to be a part of your future. So you should get some assets for them. Then you enter the rebuilding stage, which is what this team is doing now. They're looking for those core kind of base pieces to the franchise to be like, okay, these are the guys we're going to start to build around long term. Once you find those, you're in the growing stage. So you're trying to kind of grow with those guys as they get older and start to mature into an eventual contending team where you're trying to win a championship. And then we got the who the fuck knows, because there's always a couple teams that fall into there every year. That is not the one you want to be in. It is way better to be in any of these four than in the who the fuck knows. I promise you that. But the Nets definitely in a rebuilding stage right now. Probably year one of rebuilding is right now. Goals for this next season. I always put 3 goals on here. First thing, get young fellas on the court. You got plenty of them this year, right? Too many, if you ask me, honestly. But you went and drafted 5 people in the first round. Let's try to get them on the court, man, as much as we can. You're not going to be able to get all of them on the court just because you just can't reasonably play 5 rookies. I hope at points in the season you do, but reliably, that just probably doesn't make a ton of sense. But let's try to get them on the court as much as possible. If that's the G League, that's the G League. But for quite a few of them. Let's get them out there. Let's let them make mistakes, learn things. Don't be judging them too hard, right? When a team is this young like this, try not to just like write these guys off completely. Remember how much people weren't paying attention to Cade Cunningham on the Pistons, and your boy AVC had to get on YouTube and be like, no guys, Cade Cunningham's really good. He just plays for the Pistons. There's no one good around him, so you can't tell. Then they went and got some good players around him, and you're like, Cade Cunningham's amazing. It's like, yeah, no shit. But anyway, so let's get the young guys on the court. Goal number 2, follow the AVC rebuilding guide. I'm going to say this for probably every rebuilding team. We kind of talk about this a lot on the channel, where it's like, hey, first, you kind of blow up all the unnecessary assets. We've done that. We're in the rebuilding stage. So now we're drafting people, trying to find the right talent for things. You're taking on bad contracts so you can acquire more draft picks, right? Things like that. We're getting the right vets on the team to help support all the young players. This team could probably use a little bit of help with that. It's year 1 of the rebuild, so we're not going to be too harsh about it, but that is something that we'd probably like to see this team do somehow. And then I'm trying to think if there's another portion to this kind of rebuilding guide that like at a certain point, please get the right role players to put around your young players, right, when you're rebuilding, so that they can actually grow and develop, right? Like we talked about with Cade Cunningham, get him a couple shooters that he can actually distribute to. Helps a lot. Final goal, don't scout any more point guards. Nope, you got enough. You did plenty. You've drafted enough of them. Just give it a year now. Let's see if one of these motherfuckers works out. Drafted a lot of very ball dominant players this year, so maybe avoid that next year. I don't know, but yeah, just figured I'd throw that in because it was kind of funny. But keep these goals in mind as we go throughout the rest of this video. They'll be important as we talk about some of the other aspects of the team. But with all that being said, let's talk about the offseason, man, because there is a lot to talk about. Alrighty, that brings us here to the off-season tab. If you guys watched this series last year, you're probably familiar with this tab. There's kind of 3 different components to an off-season that we like to discuss. First, we have drafted players, which yeah, pretty crazy. Players that were drafted by the team this off-season that are going to be on the full-time roster. Then we have player departures, players that were on the full-time roster at the end of last season that won't be this upcoming season. And then players brought in, so guys via free agency or trades that are now going to be on the full-time roster as well. So let's start off with drafted players, right? I covered the draft pretty extensively. We had a super successful kind of draft period on this channel. One, if you want to go learn about all these prospects, like I got videos for them in here, breaking them down. So there's plenty of stuff to watch. I covered the draft professionally. I worked for a team, and was a scout this last year as a part of like my company and what I do. So if you want my opinions on it, you can go see them there. We also just like covered the draft live. That was a huge success. We're definitely going to be doing that again next year. I had so much fun with it. One of the things you guys heard me say a lot during this time was 5 rookies is too much. They had 5 first-round picks going into it, and I was like, hey, there's a guy that's kind of been on some staffs and stuff like that. 2 to 3 rookies, that's already like a tough thing. Having 2 to 3 freshmen on a team, it can be tough to go through stuff like that. Like 4 is like, oh, you're pushing. 5 is insane. I feel for the coaching staff, man. Like hopefully like these are pretty mature guys and it's not going to be a problem or anything, but it can quickly become very overwhelming for a coaching staff to have to deal with like that many rookies. So it's not something that I would have necessarily done, especially with the amount of redundancy that kind of happened in this draft. The Nets were kind of the laughing stock leaving the draft, and we'll talk about why. But it was a little bit strange. So let's talk about these guys. First, we got Demean, the guy. That's definitely not how to say his last name. I've heard him pronounce it before. It doesn't sound like his name at all. So sorry. I promise you, no one can actually say my last name either. So I don't feel bad about not knowing how to say it, but bigger ball handling guard out of BYU. I wasn't the biggest fan of his personally. I just think that there's a long way to go in his development. It is always interesting when you get a guy at that height that can't put the ball on the floor a little bit, and he's got good passing vision. It's just, I don't know what part of his game like really excites me over the next like couple of years. I'm just not sure I would have used that high of a draft pick on someone in his position. So I don't know. That's just kind of my thought with things, but we're obviously going to be rooting for all of these guys, and we want to see them develop. I want to see all these guys become great. but I'm a little bit concerned that he's just going to be physically outmatched getting to the NBA right away, and I don't think his creation skills were all that great to begin with anyway, so I think it's going to be a journey for Yegor. Nolan, another slightly bigger ball handling or ball dominant guard with some pretty good passing vision. One of the best assist percentages we've seen coming into the NBA in a while, played in France in a super competitive league on a very good Paris team. Was it Paris? No. I don't remember which team he played for, but gets up and down the court really quick, already shows that he's got a pretty solid understanding of how to run NBA style offenses, which is pretty cool for his age. Efficiency wise, he was really bad this last season, but I will say, just in the scouting of him, he gets to all the right spots, so I'm not necessarily worried that the shot's not falling right now. That's something that we just kind of rep it out, and eventually you get more consistent and more comfortable with it. But a pretty solid athlete, very quick, pretty solid defensively in my mind too. I like Nolan a lot as a prospect. I think it was a good value draft pick. Then we got Drake Powell, defensive wing out of North Carolina, which kind of the first different type of player that we're gonna see out of their draft class. Not necessarily an elite shooter in my perspective, and a pretty solid defender. Doesn't really create much offense for himself. I wouldn't call him a top tier athlete. Not a prospect that gets me super excited, but if it ends up working out and you get a 3-and-D guy out of it, those are extremely valuable in the NBA. Ben Seraph, another ball dominant kind of pass first guard coming out of, where did he play? Did he play in Germany and he's from Israel? Is that what it was? I think that's how it went. But the things that we like about Seraph, right? Plays with a lot of strong attitude, great effort, right? Does have some pretty good passing vision for the most part. He's got good size. Some of the things we don't like about him is some of the decision making is pretty rough, which for younger guards we tend to expect. It takes a lot of those shots that you don't necessarily want. I talked to some of his coaches personally, and they're like, yeah, well, you try to get him to break things, and it just doesn't necessarily work. It doesn't necessarily get through to him. He kind of just wants to get to his spots that we don't even really want him to go to, and he kind of goes for it. But ultimately, you do have a guy with some upside just because of the size, strength, and some of the intangibles that he has. So you kind of took three very similar players here, Nolan being the one that I'm the most interested in. But yeah, we'll see how much burn Ben Seraph gets with some of these other guys kind of taking up some spots. And then we got Danny Wolf, one of my more favorite prospects in this draft. A 7-foot kind of ball dominant pass first. You see why everybody was kind of clowning on the Nets, right? Came out of Michigan this last year, played in the Ivy League a couple years before that. Again, pretty damn fluid with the basketball at his size and his ability to move and handle as smooth as he does. He's one of those guys that was a guard for a long time and then grew late. Three-point shot looks pretty solid. The passing ability is definitely there. There were moments where the turnovers are a bit much, but honestly, it's more so just trying to force things rather than not understanding what's going on. So I think that he can be a very productive NBA player. I really do. My concern for all of these guys here is the fact that when you look on the rest of the roster, all these playmakers don't really have many people to playmake to. So the thing that they're kind of best at, it might be hard for them to do. And also, four guys that you'd probably like to have the basketball a little bit. There's only one basketball, man, so it's a little bit hard. You're going to have to learn how to play off each other, diversify yourselves a little more, so I guess we'll see what comes of that, man. It's five rookies. Player departures, Cam Johnson, really, really good basketball player, good for 20 points per game on any given night. Defensively, kind of hit or miss at times just because he's a little bit banged up and stuff, but we've seen him be a good defender in the NBA. He will be missed. He was traded for Michael Porter Jr., but you do that trade every time because you got a nice draft pick out of it. D'Angelo Russell was brought over at one point during the season, and we all know D'Angelo Russell, right? He is fun when he's on the Nets and we can see the ice in the veins stuff or whatever, but he has moved on, and that's probably okay considering how many young guards you got on the team that you're trying to get on the floor. Trendon Watford, he's with Philly now, kind of a solid backup forward, can step out and hit. He didn't really last year, and again, not the best team around you, and so when you have just not a lot of great talent around you, it tends to bring the performance of those role players down a little bit more, so something to remember there. D'Anthony Melton, did he actually ever suit up for them, or was he just hurt the whole time? I don't remember, but either way, not really missing out on much. And Maxwell Lewis, a young guy that they had acquired in a trade that wasn't really doing a ton for them, kind of just a raw athlete, not a lot of actual skill behind it, so he's no longer with the group. not a lot you're missing out of kind of these last two guys at this point. But these three, solid basketball players by all means. But you move on from them because of the spot that you're at, like as a franchise right now. Players brought in: Michael Never Swing the Rock Porter Jr. I love Michael Porter Jr. I really do. I know some of his podcast stuff is a little bit weird, but it doesn't diminish the fact that he's one of the best, like, just catch and shoot players, if not maybe the best catch and shoot player in the NBA. Always like dealing with some injuries and stuff like that. He's now going to be probably the second premier scorer on a team. If I can be honest, right? Because Michael Porter Jr.'s whole thing is coming off screens, catch and shoot, being a good help defender. Like, that's kind of his whole thing. He fit really perfectly in Denver's system, but they went and brought in Cam Johnson for financial reasons, which again makes a lot of sense for them. Michael Porter Jr., good basketball player. A little bit concerned because he's not able to create for himself at all, that this team around him is not going to help him out very much. Yes, we just talked about how they have a bunch of creators, and that's great that they have someone to pass the ball to that wants to shoot it. Michael will definitely do that, but you know, if you don't have another premier scorer on the team, teams are just going to hug Michael the whole time. So I get the feeling he might not have the greatest season this year, and I hope that we keep perspective of that. Next, Haywood Highsmith, a guy that they just recently got in a trade with the Miami Heat, where the Miami Heat had to sell off some salary by attaching a draft pick to it in order to kind of help duck the luxury tax. Haywood Highsmith's a good 3-and-D basketball player, so the fact that they got paid to take him, pretty good. I'd be surprised if he was on the team by the end of the season. This seems like a really easy guy to flip to get even more assets, but nice trade by Brooklyn, man. Really took advantage of that. And then Terrence Mann, another guy they acquired in a trade who, I don't know, it's hard to tell with Terrence Mann because, like, he's not necessarily, like, efficient at anything at offense, and he's not really a good team defender at all. So I know some people get more excited about him, at least Atlanta Hawks fans did when he was there at times, and he had, like, that one run with the Clippers where it was looking like he was kind of going to be something, but he doesn't excite me, like, too much, but you kind of got paid to take him as well. So at least he's, like, a competent NBA player that you can throw out on the court, because you do need some of those, right? We talked about the AVC kind of rebuilding guide. You need some competent players around your young guys in order to help them grow. So Terrence Mann is at least competent. And that's the offseason, man. It was an extensive one. It's a lot. And you're probably doing some math and being like, wait, AVC, 5 guys left the team and 8 guys joined the team. What's going on here? Your roster's full. Well, you're right. Let's go talk about it in the next segment. Alrighty, we're back to this tab here. If you guys have been on my channel for any amount of time, you're probably pretty used to kind of seeing this screen. I use this kind of tab in workbooks a lot to kind of show what's going on in totality with an NBA team. I like it a lot because it's got like a roster with some stats that we can look at, with some salary numbers. We've got like salary cap implications on the team, draft assets to take a look at, and then most importantly, we have the depth chart, because everybody in the comment section loves to talk about the depth chart. Like, AVC, Terrence Mann's a small forward and Drake Powell's only 6'6", so he can't play small forward. What the, like, I don't understand, like, why you guys have such strong opinions on the most useless shit. Like, it truly is kind of positionless basketball nowadays. Just shut the fuck up. It's a visual. Fucking Billy. But anyway, by the way, I love that, I explain who Billy is, quote unquote, in our Oklahoma City Thunder breakdown there, and people really enjoyed that story, so I'm glad that you guys really enjoyed that. But anyway, where I want to start off with is the roster, and the fact that we have -3 roster spots currently available on the team. We got too many players on here, so let's talk about it. We already talked about Michael Porter Jr. and everything, so we'll move on to Nick Claxton. But first, AVC. What are these numbers right here? Thank you for asking, people in the void. These are EPM numbers. They stand for estimated plus minus. Basically, it's a really, really advanced basketball statistic that tells you how good someone is at offense, defense, and overall as a basketball player. I then normalize those or index them, and you get a 0 to 100 score comparing them against everyone else in the NBA. So if you were a 100 at something, you were the best in the NBA at it. If you were a 0, you were the worst. So like Michael Porter Jr., 90th percentile in offense in the NBA. No surprise there, right? I always tell people, because look, I own a basketball statistics and like consulting company. No statistic is perfect. I will tell everybody that, you people, my clients, just about everybody. No statistic tells the complete story. You need people with critical thinking skills to look at a situation and say, okay, The number says this. Why is the number saying this? Otherwise, you're just reading nonsense. Like you really need that critical thinking skill to tie the whole story together. So please do not ever just like look at numbers and make that fact. But these numbers are pretty good, and they do help tell a story. They take a lot into account. But anyway, Nick Claxton, pretty solid NBA center. Obviously, was kind of a project for this franchise that they've put together, and he's become one of the better like defensive centers in the NBA. Now we talk about context. You're seeing AVC. He's actually a below average defensive player. Well, he was coming off an injury for a good part of this season. You could tell he was kind of working himself back into shape. And at the back half of the season, things did start to look pretty good again. So the numbers were actually a lot worse, and they've been getting better. Context is important, right? So I'm really glad that Nick Claxton's on the team. I've seen a lot of people saying that they should trade him, to which I'm like, no, I'd prefer not to, especially with all these young playmakers on the team. Like, let's keep him around. It's good to just have like a reliable run, jump, and dunk kind of big here that's going to play some good defense. Like, that's just such a nice thing for like young guards to have, man. It's good. So just keep Nick Claxton on the team unless there's an offer that absolutely you need to take. I'd like to keep him around. Already talked about Terrence Mann. There's Yegor here. You'll notice rookies don't have any numbers here. They haven't played in the NBA yet. Look at that. You guys are so smart. You figured it out. Zaire Williams is back on a new contract with this team. Very like average NBA player analytically, but there's not really like anything that says like, oh yeah, this guy's great at something to go along with it. And honestly, he probably falls into more of a below average category in a lot of like the offensive side of things. He's not creating for anybody. He's not very efficient at anywhere on the court. We just haven't seen the same Zaire Williams that we saw his first year in the NBA, like 4 years later now, and we're still kind of waiting for him to grab that again. So hopefully he does, but not a bad player to have on the roster. Again, at least he's played a couple years in the NBA at this point, so not bad for a rebuilding team. Deron Sharp, a guy that they just re-signed as well to a very similar contract. Actually, another pretty solid big to have on this NBA team. Deron Sharp does a couple things really well. He rebounds extremely well. I believe he's like one of the best offensive rebounders in the NBA in terms of like offensive rebound percentage. And then defensively, he's extremely competent. He's big, strong, just kind of your bruiser type of center, right? Offensively, not going to contribute like anything too crazy. He's just going to take like the most open shots that are really, really easy for him, which great. That's awesome. That's all we kind of need you to do. So very, very quality backup big to have on this team. I like the fact that these young guards will always have a big that they can kind of resort to at the end of plays if they absolutely need to. Not that they're going to create any offense for them, but you know, if you're driving to the hoop and you need to throw something up there and hope that they go get it, it's at least an option. Now, this is the fun part. Cam Thomas. We just did a video on Cam Thomas a couple days ago. I'm recording this on Saturday the 6th, by the way, so if anything has changed since then, that is why. Cam Thomas, one of the 4 big restricted free agents this offseason that were kind of just waiting and not getting a contract. I covered the situation a lot more in depth in this video, but basically, the restricted free agents in the NBA don't have a lot of ground to stand on this year. Cam Thomas is a young basketball player that was getting you like 24 points a game. So normally you're like, give him a max. But here's the thing with Cam Thomas, man. He is very, very good at not necessarily offense. He is very good at taking jump shots and hitting jump shots. That is what Cam Thomas can do. Potentially better than a lot of other people in the NBA can. There is no real other part to his game, though. Like, he's not a great ball handler. He is not a great distributor. He is a very poor defensive player. But he makes just about any shot from anywhere if you let him. So these players don't tend to really exist in the NBA outside of like 9th, 10th man type of roles on good basketball teams. And even to do that, you don't see too many of them anymore, but they have to be so good at offense to even just be considered to make up for all the other stuff that it's like, okay, you can kind of let it slide. That's why Cam Thomas isn't getting a contract. The Nets understand this. And on a bad team, yeah, he can put up 24, 25 points, no problem, but it's not going to help you win any basketball games, right? So what he did was he accepted the qualifying offer. That's what a team has to offer to make you a restricted free agent. And he just took that. So he'll be an unrestricted free agent next year. Probably going to get you 25 to 30 points a game this year because somebody's got to score the basketball, right? It's him and Michael Porter Jr. are the only guys that are somewhat scorers, and like Michael Porter Jr. doesn't even create for himself, right? So Cam's going to have the opportunity to do that this year, and he's going to try to get a bigger contract next year, and hopefully he gets a chance to add a little bit more onto his game. But again, good to have somebody to put the ball in the hoop on this team. I mean, like I said, needs to be someone. Already talked about Haywood Highsmith, Nolan Trayer, Noah Clowney, younger guy on the team. He's a big man. The only real interesting thing we saw at one point was Noah Clowney play off of Nick Claxton like 2 years ago, and Nets fans kind of creamed themselves over that, and they were like, AVC, Noah Clowney's going to be a power forward, not a center, and that's where he's going to be. And you know what? Just because of you guys, I put him there. There you fucking go. There's Noah Clowney right there, backup power forward. Like, thanks, AVC. Shut the fuck up, Billy. Your nana's a hoe. Anyway, Noah Clowney didn't really show us too much last year. He was hurt like a little bit during the season, but didn't really excel in any particular area because he's not quite a center. He doesn't actually like rebound all that well. He's not like all that great defensively at this point. There's no real offensive side of his game that's all that interesting right now. I never want to write off young players. I never do. I'm just telling you, like, I don't see anything that I'm all that interested in. Honestly, I never really have. But I don't know. He's here. Try to give him some minutes this year if we can, right? Already talked about Drake Powell. Dariq Whitehead, a guy taken right after Noah Clowney, I believe, in the draft, or was he right before? I can't remember. But Dariq Whitehead has been hurt for most of his NBA career, and we just don't know much about him at this point. So that's what I have to say. Then we already talked about Ben Seraph and Danny Wolf. Now, you'll notice 3 guys not in green here. That just means I haven't put them in the depth chart, and that's because all 4 of these next guys, Keon Johnson, Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, and Drew Timme, are on non-guaranteed contracts. 3 of these guys are going to go, most likely. If not, all 4 of them will go. None of them really do anything all that great on the basketball court, if I'm being honest. If I had to make a prediction as to who would stay out of the 4, I would say Jalen Wilson, because at least you've kind of seen him have some productiveness in the NBA in the past. But even still, it's kind of like, I don't know, you might just move all of them and leave an open roster spot and say, okay, well, now we can just like absorb a player in a trade or something. Because here's the important thing. The Nets are the only team in the NBA in a very unique situation. So much like how there's a salary cap in the NBA, there's a salary floor. So let's talk about the cap first. So in the NBA, we have 4 different levels to the NBA salary structure, and technically a hidden 5th one that we're going to talk about today. So you've got the cap line itself. The Brooklyn Nets are $17 million away from that currently. Once you cross that, you can only re-sign your own players to anything more than a minimum contract. Then you have the luxury tax line. The Nets are $50 million away from that, which is nuts. Once you cross that, your team gets way more expensive to use, and every single year that you spend in there consecutively, it gets more and more and more expensive. That's why you saw teams like the Celtics and the Heat have to unload players like Haywood Highsmith to avoid that tax, because otherwise you just can't even operate as a business at a certain point, which is it's good for the competitiveness of the league. Then we have the first and second aprons. These are newer things that the NBA has added to, again, try to balance things out a little bit more. If you want to read about all the implication of these aprons, I got them up on the screen here so you can just pause and read them if you would like. But basically, just know that as you cross into these different levels, the NBA just starts to strangle you more and more. They're like, you can't use this exception, you can't sign these players, you can't make trades like this, more and more and more, until the point where you're in the second apron and you're just like, the NBA says, okay, nope, you can't do anything else, you can only go down from here. But again, while there's a salary cap, there's also a salary floor that you have to hit, and the Nets have not actually hit that yet. The salary floor in the NBA is about $139 million, and if I look at these numbers right here, you highlight them, the team is currently at about $137 million, but that doesn't take into account that at least 3 of these guys are going to go. So let's just say my hypothesis is correct, and that Jalen Wilson is the man left standing. It could be any of the other ones. I'm just for example, this team is about $9 million short from the salary floor that they need to hit. Now, I believe they don't have to hit that until the end of the season, but this team will have to take on more salary, and they should be happy to do so. So one of the things we're going to want to do in this video is explore some sort of deal where we can take in like a player with a higher salary that a team doesn't want. They're going to attach some draft picks to it or something like that. So just be on the lookout for us making some sort of move like that. If we could talk about the depth chart of this team, again, the thing that everybody loves to talk about, honestly, the big man rotation, you feel probably pretty good about on this team, which is kind of an interesting thing to say. It's not going to get better after that, so just know that. The first 5, full of at least like NBA level players. Haywood Highsmith, good 3-and-D wing. Cam Thomas can go get buckets, doesn't play winning basketball. Michael Porter Jr., we're a little bit concerned about the fact of who he's playing with might really diminish his usability, but he's not a long-term thing for this team anyway. He's just here for the time being. And then I put Yegor here because he was the highest draft pick on the team. I'm very serious when I say One, this team could just start Cam Thomas as a point guard and move Terrence Mann up to like a starting two. I could also really see Nolan Traore moving up and taking Yegor's spot. I think Nolan is the most ready of the three to play right now. So despite him being drafted a lot later, don't be surprised if that's the case. Just something that I'm kind of pointing out right now. The final thing we're going to talk about on this tab right now is the draft pick situation. For being the first year of a rebuild, this team has done an excellent job of collecting draft picks up to this point. This team has a ton of assets that really start to get utilized starting in like 2027. And then we start to see like a lot more depth and like picks and stuff like that, which is good. You want to have kind of that treasure trove of things so that, one, you can draft all the young players that you want, but also you need to be able to, like, when you see the right player become available, package them all up and send them out. It is important to say, like what we did with the Oklahoma City Thunder, it can be dangerous to have too many draft picks as well. You always see the Thunder, because they do everything perfectly because they're the Thunder. They always do 1 or 2 trades a year where they package up like 1 or 2 second-round picks or like a late first or something, and they send it to a team, and they basically get back identical picks, but like more down the line. So they're pushing all their draft picks, because if you have too many picks in a single season, they kind of become net negative assets, because you can't even roster all the players you draft at a certain point, and it's not worth it. So you'd rather just keep pushing the assets down the line, and that's something that this team should be monitoring at all times. But with all that being said, I feel like we should move on to the trade portion of this video, and we're gonna try to find some not so great contracts that we can take in that maybe we can really utilize and try to get like some first round picks out of. So let's move on to that portion of the video. Alrighty, that brings us back here to Fanspo. Fanspo, for those of you that don't know, really cool website where you can do a bunch of things like do trades and like mock drafts and like all this other fun basketball stuff. It's a free website. The UI is incredible. I'm not sponsored or anything. I just think the website's super cool and it's free. But because it's free, I take it that the owners of the site don't have a ton of time to like go and update the site, because like if you go and look right now, none of the rookies are like on here or anything, and it's like and like not all the data is like kept up with or whatever. So this is just like a shout out to the Fanspo people and be like, hey, can you update it, because we'd love to use it in the videos. We love everything you guys do. But for the meantime, we're gonna use Spot Track. Spot Track updates everything like in super real time. They're super on top of everything, and they do have a beta version of a trade machine that works pretty well. It's just like the UI and the usability isn't as good as like Fanspo is, right? So just know that that's the case. We're going to be able to use this though. And what I want to do is obviously like we're going to make trades as where the nets are right here. We're going to look for not very good contracts. So honestly, we're just starting at the top, of all the salaries for this year. And let's just find some that we might be able to take in or whatever. And look, we also don't want to take in too much salary, right? Like we're cool to go over the cap. You don't want to be by the luxury tax. Let's not do that, right? So we don't want to do anything egregious with this. So like taking on like a Paul George, like let's just say things don't go all that great this year. Probably not what I'm all that interested in. Zach LaVine? Maybe next year once Cam Thomas is off the team, but I'm not sure I'm taking on a Zach LaVine at this point. Although he's on the last year of his deal, is he not? Can we just use Fanspo quick to see this? Again, just the usability of this is better. Okay, he's got 2 years left. I think Zach LaVine might jump off a bridge if he got traded to Brooklyn, because he went through the shitty Timberwolves teams, went to the shitty Bulls teams. Now he's on the Kings. If he got moved to the Nets during this phase too, oh, Zach LaVine, what a just shitty NBA career you had. You just had no shot at having any success in the league. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, so as we start to move down, we'll start to see contracts like if a Zion Williamson became available, would we maybe take a flyer? Maybe we'd think about it. Michael Porter Jr., one that we took on. Brandon Ingram, I don't know. LaMelo Ball, we're not touching that one right now. If Rudy Gobert became available, I wouldn't do that. We got Claxton. We just, like, it's not a big deal. If we were to get some draft picks, we would get some draft picks, but not necessarily what we're looking for right now. Tyler Hero could be kind of interesting, but we'd probably have to pay for him, right? So that's not necessarily who I'm looking for either. I'm just trying to look and see like a Miles Bridges or something. Maybe Charlotte's trying to sell him at some point. Just taking a look at Miles Bridges and his current contract situation. He's got 2 years, $25 million left. that could be an avenue. At least it would add another scorer to the team. I don't know if culturally that's the kind of guy you want to bring in, but, you know, is what it is. Fred VanVleet, no. DeMar DeRozan, you could. Again, you just need like a scorer and like a good vet to have on the team. That'd be nice. That's another thing we should look for, is like some vets, because looking at this team here, there's not really that like gritty vet to help grow the young guys on the team, so that is something I'd like to have if at all possible. Aldama, no. Lu Dort, no. Hachimura, no. Zubac, Zach Collins, he's on a 1 year, so it's probably not all that important. You could maybe you could call up the Bulls if the Bulls really want to get off Patrick Williams or something contract. I think the Bulls are probably going to be stubborn about that contract since it's just kicking in, and that might be more of a next year kind of thing. Keldon Johnson's an interesting one. Do the Spurs necessarily need Keldon Johnson, and how much longer is he under contract for? He's got 2 years, 17-ish mil. I don't think the Spurs are going to do anything like all that hasty this year, but I'm talking you guys through this whole process because I want it to be realistic, right? The Suns need to sell people. Let's call up the Phoenix Suns. We can help you guys, right? We can help you guys with something. Problem is they don't have many draft picks to give up necessarily. So that's something to consider. But this team just does have to get cheaper, right? So they gotta dump someone. Like if Jalen Green became available, like yeah, hell, I'd take a flyer on that. We're not going to be good in the next couple years anyway, right? In the next 3 seasons, so we might as well see if he's going to be any good. We could take on a Grayson Allen for you. That's no big deal at all. We could take on a Royce O'Neal. Wouldn't be mad about that whatsoever. Otherwise, probably not anybody all that impactful. So let's just say it's like a Grayson Allen or something like that, and we're just kind of trying to take on the money for him more so. So if Grayson Allen is here, we're trying to help the Suns actually save a little bit of money. We turn trade deadline mode off so that we can actually move people as needed. We want to send them someone cheaper. We could send them like a Haywood Highsmith back so that they have to include like a draft pick that's like protected or something like that. But what do they really have in terms of things? They have a second round pick in like 2026 actually. We don't have a ton of 2026 picks, so I'm not opposed to that, right? And we got already 1 second round pick for Haywood. Haywood Highsmith has a chance to not look as good this year as well, because again, he doesn't create for himself. He needs other people to create for him. So I'm not mad at that kind of idea, honestly. And taking back Grayson Allen, like, sure, why the hell not potentially? Like, again, a guy that maybe you could flip at some point, or we could just go with O'Neal. What's the difference in salary for these guys? $5 million versus the $10 million here? That's maybe not such a bad call. So maybe we go here, right, with Royce O'Neal. That also gives us more of the vet that maybe we're looking for on the team, and we swap him for Haywood right here, and then we say, give us your second round pick this year, assholes. Do something like this, and yeah, we can make this work. We don't need Haywood. Royce can play some minutes for us again, be more of a vet on the team, and helps us get a little bit closer to that salary floor. We get a draft pick with it as well that we can use in an upcoming season. I don't hate that shout whatsoever. Let's go see if there's someone else that we could find though, like Onyeka Okongwu. No, that's not necessarily what I'm thinking. Steven Adams, LeVert. I can justify a lot of these contracts, like a Grant Williams or a Josh Green. Charlotte's not that desperate to get off of salary though, so that doesn't make sense. Robert Williams could be a thing. And here's the thing, like realistically, our role in things is not just going to be like a 2-team trade. We're probably going to be a 3-team kind of, I guess, team in the basketball economy this year. That's probably the best way to put it, in the sense that it's really hard for teams in the NBA to make trades right now. So you usually need third teams that you can dump salary to make things happen. That'll probably be where we play a little bit more. Like, in all honesty, we drew it up in a recent video that you guys would have seen for the Lakers video, but we could take on like a Gabe Vincent or a Maxi Kleba, something like that for sure. Trying to think who else needs to like dump some money. Like we could take on a Jared Vanderbilt, that's fine. There's the Gabe Vincent that we were talking about, Maxi Kleba as well. Who else needs? I want to try to find one more. I just think that would be good. Let me skip until I find somebody. I suppose we could try to help the Celtics, because the Celtics by the trade deadline will have to move somebody else somewhere. Can I make this happen? Can I get Anthony Simons over to the Magic, please? Like, I just feel like it needs to happen, right? So let's go trade deadline mode because that's the time it would be on. So Anthony Simons, he's going to Orlando. They need a scoring guard really, really bad. Someone that can just create some offense. There you go. Send him here, or to Orlando. The Orlando Magic need to dump some money in order to make this happen, don't they? Jonathan Isaac perhaps could be dealt somewhere. I know Magic fans, you'd be sad to see him go, but you get an Anthony Simons. You got so many other people at this fucking position. So dump him off to us. We'll take him. And now, who are we sending over to the Celtics? Because they just need to save money. Who could we give him? We could give him a Terrence Mann, right? It's 2 years. I'm not sure they want 2 years of him. We could give them a Sharp. They need a big man. We don't necessarily need him, and that could warrant us getting a pick out of this, right? That could be kind of interesting. I'm cool with giving up Duron Sharp because we want to get Danny Wolf on the court at some point as well, and I'm not sure how, like, if Sharp's all that needed. So let's just see where we're at with this, right? I don't think this trade will work. Yep. So the Celtics, why does it fail? The Magic, they're hard capped. They're over by $11-ish million still. Yep, I guess that makes sense. Let's go over to the Magic, or we could send Wendell Carter out. Not the biggest deal if Mo is going to be healthy at that point. They got Goga as well. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the direction I want to go. You wouldn't need Tyus Jones anymore, so you could dump him off to us as well. So now how far off are we? Load, spot track, thank you very much. We are over by 9.2 million here. Okay. So we would also need to give up a little bit more money. Interesting. Could we send, like, this person over to Boston as well, or is this thing gonna break here? I can't tell. No. Okay, so we're good now. The Magic just need to ditch another, like, $4-ish million. Okay, we could probably dump a little bit more to the Celtics or something like that, or maybe get a fourth team involved if we really needed to. But who else are we getting rid of on this team? Mo Wagner. Oh yeah, Jet Howard. Give us Jet Howard. Then you don't even really have to give us like the any of like the really crazy draft picks. We get an interesting young player out of it. We'll take that. So now we do this. This trade should work once it's finished loading. It currently fails because we're exceeding by $7 million. Really? Okay, so can I just dump like a little bit more? Can I dump like this little bit of let's just say it's Jalen Wilson back to Orlando or something. And mind you, we would maybe release like some of these guys or whatever. No, they're over a little bit. So I think we could probably realistically say that this deal could potentially happen, but because Spot Track doesn't let me like release certain players like these guys here who wouldn't be on the roster, it would probably work. But just know that there's some sort of framework in this where maybe we get like some sort of draft pick as well. We take on a couple not as valuable contracts, we get a young player and help these other teams make something happen. I think that could be a cool move. But with all that being said, that's kind of my ideas for some trades. Let's move on to the rotations. Okay, on to rotations, question mark. Why do I always put a question mark there? It's simply for the idea that I'm not in the practices, right? I make these kind of lineups and rotations based off of the basketball that I've seen up to this point, but I'm not in camp. I don't know what they're trying to do, and that stuff's really important for when you're thinking about this stuff. So it's just an idea. There's going to be somebody that sticks out in camp that we just don't know about that's just going to look better or worse or something like that. And these minutes right here, these are just averages. Obviously, there's going to be games where certain people have to play more or less. It's just how it is. So just kind of take that into account. The EPM numbers right here, basically these are just the EPM numbers you saw here, but now it's weighted by how many minutes they're playing from a team perspective. So kind of a cool view of things, and kind of here's how it's all kind of working back here. I should note that because rookies don't have any EPM numbers, they don't actually get a score that gets added on to these numbers right here because rookies are so unpredictable. I think that it's warranted to say, hey, that's going to weigh your team down a little bit. And so the Nets have quite a few rookies playing, just how it's going to be, right? Let's talk about the rotation. So you'll notice Yegor, I don't actually have him playing all that many minutes on here because I don't think he's ready to play necessarily more than that right now, but he will be maybe in the starting five in my mind, so take it as it will. Our kind of core players are these five right here. You've got Cam Thomas. I'm not even going to give him more than like 30 minutes a night until we start to see more all-around basketball being played. Haywood, good to have him out there when you can. Michael Porter Jr., probably the best all-around player on the team. Unfortunately, again, a guy that historically is actually a pretty good defensive player. Just last year it wasn't that great. He's mostly known for being a help player. I know he doesn't have like lateral quickness and everything, but his help defense has been pretty crucial for Denver over the years. Nick Claxton, we just want him out there because he's reliable. Terrence Mann, because he's played NBA minutes. Same with Zaire Williams. Deron Sharp is just going to be on whenever Nick Claxton is. And then I've got two other rookies in Nolan here and Danny Wolf. Again, I could see Nolan getting a lot more minutes if given the opportunity. Honestly, I could even see them like splitting minutes if we wanted to do like something like this. If I don't know if you really, really wanted to, but you know, we'll see what happens with rookies. It's hard to tell, but these are kind of the 10 that I want to see. And in reserve, you kind of Noah Clowney, Drake Powell, Ben Seraph, Dariq Whitehead. Hope to get them all in the court in some way or fashion, but curious to hear what you guys think. Then we move over to the lineups tab. This tab is what I use to kind of say like, hey, let's put together 3 lineups that I just kind of want to see this team run at some point this year and some ideas I have. This is called the trying lineup, meaning we are trying to actively win a basketball game. You shouldn't go out there telling your team we're going to lose every night. We're a rebuilding team. If you're in a close game, let's fucking try to win, man. So let's put our 5 best basketball players out there. This is what we got. Cam Thomas is taking the last shot because he's probably going to hit it. And you basically just take out Yeager. You put Terrence Mann in instead, and you try to win with this competent group of basketball players, at least. Maybe it's one of the rookies at some point, but for the time being, that's my thought. This is called the Help Yeager lineup here, where we're trying to optimize him, right? We want to do as much as we can to help our highest draft pick. We don't know if he'll be the future or not, but let's give him a shot. You'll notice I put Nolan out there with him. I don't think Yeager is good enough to be the primary facilitator on a team yet, so I'm putting another one out there with him to split the responsibilities. And then we just have quality around him. Haywood, Michael Porter Jr., Claxton. So that's kind of my idea to help benefit him. And then we got the draft capital team. Throw all 5 rookies out there. We got to do it. We got to see them start one game this year. Has that ever happened before? Has a team ever started 5 rookies? I guess first season of the NBA, everybody would have started 5 rookies or whatever. But has there been something since then? I don't know. I can't imagine that there has been. I think that would be so cool to see at some point. So let's get all 5 rookies out there in some way or fashion. I want to see it happen. But with all that being said, that's our lineups, all of that type of stuff. Let's move on to the standing predictions part of the video. Alrighty, my little basketball dum-dums. You guys know how this works at this point. Basically, I'm going to click this button right here. The Nets are going to appear wherever I think that they are going to be ranked by the end of this regular season. I normally do a drum roll, but we're just going to click the button. I got the Nets as the 15th seed, man. This is probably going to be the worst team in the NBA. Probably, right? Maybe not. Maybe they'll surprise us all. I hope so. That'd be hilarious. That'd be so cool. But I don't see any reason to say that this is going to be a very good basketball team this year. You don't need to see all the red and little bit of green to know that this basketball team probably isn't going to be all that great. What you should keep in mind are the goals for this team, right? The goal is to get the young guys on the court, get them learning, right? Acquire a couple more draft picks. Like, let's just see some little development in some of the young guys. Maybe one of the young guys is really going off early, and we're like, oh shit, like Drake Powell's the future. He's the next LeBron. And maybe he is, right? Maybe we'll see that. But for the time being, this team's probably not going to be all that great. So let's just take little victories when we can. We try to build on those for the next seasons. It's the first year of the rebuild, so we got to be patient. Goal, probably try to get a number 1 pick by next offseason. Go for one of those guys at the top of next year's draft so that we have one of the first main building blocks in place, we hope. But anyway, those are my thoughts. You guys let me know down below what you think of the Brooklyn Nets and kind of what they're going to be doing this season. It seems pretty clear, but always curious to hear any other thoughts. And with that being said, let's move on to the comments of the video. Alrighty, y'all. Comments of the video is coming from our OKC Thunder season preview video here. Again, please go watch all the other season previews. Like, I don't expect these videos to do great ever, just because it's the time of the year that nobody's really watching or caring about basketball, but try to help them in any way that you can, because I want to be able to tell myself I should do this series every single year. But anyway, comments of the video is coming from CJ-ZR6LI that said, don't see why they don't win it all, again, bearing injury. Are you going to make a video on the Kawhi sponsorship situation? So, I'm not going to do a video on that until something more legitimate happens. And here's kind of the reason why I'm not, because that is kind of a legal issue, right? And it's all kind of speculation right now. I have looked at the stuff or whatever. It's a very interesting situation, and just, again, an opinion, not a lawyer, not anything like that. So I don't know the legality of like all of this stuff, and I know it's more so it's not necessarily like it's going to go to a court or something like that unless they were like money laundering somehow with it, but I know it's just an NBA needs to investigate and figure out what to do about it, circumventing the salary cap. it doesn't look good. Like, just basic logic tells me that they're kind of breaking the rules, but like, in all honesty, don't you guys all wish your owners were willing to do shit like that to make you competitive? I would kill to have the Bulls be doing shit like that, man. Shout out Steve Ballmer. It makes me kind of like him more. But if that is breaking the rules, ooh-wee, like, they're a very swift hammer might come down on them, man, just from prior, like, knowledge of, like, what happens in the NBA with stuff like this. But I don't really want to do like a whole video kind of talking about it, just because I don't think any of us know what the fuck we're talking about with it. My expertise is on like basketball strategy and scouting and analytics and stuff like that. So I don't ever want to just put out videos on stuff I don't completely understand. And maybe I cross that border sometimes, but that just felt like one where I'm like, I don't necessarily know, but we'll report on it at some point if more happens and we just kind of know what's going on a little bit more. So just my thoughts. Thank you very much for the comment and all the fun other comments that are in here. If you guys want to have more great basketball conversations, go click the Discord link in the description. Go join the Discord. It's also the way to get your hands on this very fun spreadsheet. But yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys make on here, your ideas for the teams going into this season. Again, show the videos some love, and hey, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. I believe you're seeing this video on a Thursday, maybe? If it's 9, yeah, you would see it on a Thursday. So one more day this week, y'all. One more day this week, and then we're off to the weekend. So appreciate it, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much. Bye.